I have 7. Good evening. Having reached the date and hour designated in the warrant for the October 21st, 2024 special town meeting, I hereby call the meeting to order. My name is Amy Coular, and I am the Bourne Town Meeting moderator. Mr. Town Clerk Barry Johnson, how many voters have been checked into the town meeting?
156.
He responds 156 registered voters. Thank you all for being here tonight. I declare there is a quorum present. Mr. Town Clerk, has the special town meeting warrant been duly posted as required by law?
Yes, it has.
He responds in the affirmative. Madam Stenographer, please note for the record that the Town Clerk responds that the warrant has been duly posted. As a reminder, will everyone please silence your cell phones at this time? And at this point, I will ask you to join me in standing and remain standing until I ask you to resume your seats. Thank you. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us offer a special moment of silence to those brave men and women who serve our nation in the public safety, military, and intelligence services at home and abroad, and for those town employees who have passed away since the last town meeting. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I'm going to recognize Select Board Member Peter Meyer.
Thank you. Point of personal privilege.
So what is going to happen now is I'm going to provide you with a lot of information in the next few minutes. We're going to go over some housekeeping matters and use our voice votes on 2 motions that keep the town meeting business moving along smoothly. We're also going to do a quick mock vote on how to use the electronic voting devices. When I ask for the motions during the next few minutes, we are going to conduct those votes by voice. They are routine and in keeping with the longtime practice in the town of Bourne. I'm explaining this now because at my very first town meeting as moderator, it was also a town meeting with a high interest article, and there was a lot of first-time attendees at town meeting. I welcome you all and thank you for being here tonight. I have appointed Wendy Weston as my deputy moderator. Wendy is seated in the center of the stage, in front of the stage. If you need help with a motion or other matter, please see Wendy. Seated on the stage in front of you, to my right, is the Finance Committee. The Deputy Town Clerk and Town Clerk are to my immediate right. Town Council is to my left, and behind Town Council is the Select Board. The first 2 rows, well, the first row here in front of the auditorium is reserved for members of the Planning Board and School Committee. Now, does everyone have a voter handbook? If you do not have a voter handbook, please raise your hand and a teller will bring you one. Okay. Does every registered voter have an electronic voting device? If you don't have one, please raise your hand and a teller will bring you one. I will now take a moment to explain the electronic voting system. When you checked in, you were given a handset. That handset is for voting and is issued to you and only you. Using a handset issued to someone else is strictly forbidden. Before each vote, I will announce the motion or amendment being voted on. I'll then announce the beginning of a 30-second interval during which you will vote via your handset. To vote yes, you will press the green button. To vote no, you will press the red button. If you accidentally push the wrong button, you can switch your vote by pressing the correct button. If you don't want to participate in a vote, don't push any buttons. When the 30-second voting interval is over, I will announce that voting is complete. Shortly thereafter, I will announce the results of the vote. So you're allowed to temporarily leave your seat during the duration of the meeting and exit the auditorium, and if you do, please leave your handset with the exit desk staff at the rear. They will label your handset with your name and reissue it to you when you return to the auditorium. When you're leaving the auditorium at the conclusion of business this evening, please make sure to place your handset in one of the bins at the exit desks. All right, so now we're going to do a practice vote to make sure that everyone here is comfortable with operating their handset. Please remember, green for yes and red for no. All right, so the first question tonight is, will the Celtics repeat as NBA champions this season? Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. Okay. I declare that the Celtics will win the championship this year. 130 yes votes to 44 no. So here we go. I am informed by the Select Board that if this town meeting does not conclude this evening, that is their intention to move that it recess and reconvene tomorrow evening here at 7 p.m. We will do our best to avoid that. The town meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order as interpreted by the book Town Meeting Time. And I will not read all of the moderator's rules, which are detailed in your handbook. I will address parliamentary matters as they arise during the course of the meeting. When an article is called and you intend to speak on that article, please leave your seat and come down to the front and sit near one of the 2 microphones so that I may recognize you. Tonight you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. My deputy is keeping time for me. If at any time during the debate of the articles, if I determine there are numerous individuals wishing to speak on the article on the floor, I may reduce the time allotted to each speaker. I have appointed Sergeant Cox as my Sergeant-at-Arms. To that end, one thing I do not tolerate are personal attacks or other similar behavior from a speaker. You will be declared out of order, and in accordance with Massachusetts law, you may be removed from the meeting by the Sergeant-at-Arms and confined until the conclusion of the session. When you're speaking, please speak only to the motion on the floor. Do not be repetitive, be concise and to the point. This meeting is being videotaped for later televising on the local Comcast cable access channel. There is a stenographer down front on my right, keeping an official written transcript of the proceedings. As a matter of longtime custom and usage within the town of Bourne, it is solely within the moderator's discretion to allow non-voters to address the town meeting. If anything interferes with your ability to hear, speak, or participate in the town meeting to your satisfaction, you may interrupt the meeting by declaring a point of personal privilege, and your concern will be heard and addressed. If you need to speak from your seat, please get my attention and we will get you a portable microphone. Okay, we are now going to conduct 2 votes by voice. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that this meeting dispense with the reading of the warrant and of the constable's return of service of that warrant, and that the moderator not be required to read resolutions or warrant articles verbatim, but may refer to them instead by article number and/or page in the handbook. I have a motion and a second. Thank you. So, all those in favor of dispensing with the reading of the warrant and allowing me to refer to articles by number and page number, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. I declare the motion was unanimous. I am informed by the Select Board that there is a Bourne Rule resolution. This resolution is printed on page 54 of your handbook. Madam Chair of the Select Board, please make a motion on the Proposition 2.5 resolution.
Be it resolved at the October 21st, 2024 special town meeting are contained in the warrant for this town meeting, if voted, are equal to the maximum property tax limit for the town of Bourne established by law for fiscal year 2025. If the answer is in the negative, the Finance Committee and the dollar amount which exceeds the Finance Committee dollar recommendations on all articles in the warrant, but is less than the maximum tax levy limit, which certified dollar amount shall be available for appropriation by this special town meeting. If the answer is in the affirmative, then during this special town meeting, any motion to raise and appropriate funds in order to increase any appropriation recommended by the Finance Committee must state an equal dollar reduction in another recommended appropriation or appropriations. A recommendation of indefinite postponement by the Finance Committee shall be construed as a $0 funding recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this, all right. So I didn't hear the second, I'm sorry. Was it Missy? It was second from the floor. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the Bourne Rule resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? I declare it is unanimous. Okay, thank you all for your patience. With that, I am informed by the town administrator in accordance with section 1.1.9 of the town bylaws, there are articles which the select board and the finance committee have each voted are essential to the exercise of the town's corporate functions. These articles are 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. All other articles of this special town meeting will be drawn by lottery. With that, please proceed to Article 2, which is on page 11 of your voter handbook. Article 2 on page 11 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion?
Yes, we do.
I recognize Select Board Chair Mary Jane Mastrangelo.
We move that the town vote to amend the action taken under Article 2, fiscal 2025 budget of the 2024 annual town meeting by 1, appropriating monies in the total amount of $87,855 as specified in the chart entitled Funding Sources below, and 2, by increasing expenses by $87,855 as specified in the chart entitled These Amounts Are to be Voted below. Funding sources: raise and appropriate from the FY25 tax levy and other general revenues of the town, $87,855. Total, $87,855. These amounts to be voted: public safety, $62,855. Public works, $25,000. Total, $87,855.
Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. This operating budget amendment is needed to meet budgetary requirements that have been identified since the annual town meeting. This budget amendment includes the reorganization of the Emergency Preparedness Department into the Police Department after the retirement of Charlie Noyes, who has been serving the town as a part-time department head of the Emergency Preparedness Department. The reorganization puts emergency preparedness under the Police Department. The total budget increase to the Police Department is $98,800, which has been offset by a $35,945 reduction in the emergency preparedness budget for a net budget increase of $62,855. This budget increase also includes a third lieutenant position funded for the 6 months of the fiscal year starting in January. The third lieutenant is needed for several reasons, including the implementation of body cameras, the assignment of administrative duties related to emergency preparedness, and other department needs. The specific duties of the 3 police department lieutenants will be determined by the police chief. The $25,000 additional funds for DPW are for maintenance work on the town ball fields. This spring, ARPA funds were used to fund DPW taking over maintenance of the ball fields. The results were positive, and DPW identified the budget increase needed to continue DPW field maintenance program as part of the budget. The total increase in expenditures of $87,855 has been offset by increased revenue from state aid based on the final cherry sheet. A yes or I vote in favor of the motion increases the FY25 operating budget to allow the proposed adjustments. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion keeps the budget as it was voted in May, and there would not be sufficient funds in the budget lines to cover these expenses. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Amanda Bongiovanni.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Please state your name for the record.
Mark Terrell from the village of Buzzards Bay.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
It's my understanding that the special town meeting...
Can you speak into the microphone more, Mr. Terrell, please?
Thank you.
Yes.
That should be better. It's my understanding that the special town meeting cannot raise and appropriate tax funds, that the annual town meeting in May spent all of the available funds that could be spent from the tax levy. It seems out of order to be using the approach of raise and appropriate. Maybe a transfer of some sort is more appropriate to make this adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Article 2?
Do you want to address this? I mean, we raise and appropriate the general revenue of the state, so we have to appropriate that money. So when we get the cherry sheet that we base our annual town meeting budget on, the cherry sheet is not final. And so since we passed the budget, there's been $87,855 of additional revenue to the town, which we are now appropriating for the purpose of this article. It does not change the tax levy for property taxes.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything further? No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mastrangelo. Is there any further discussion or questions on Article 2? Hearing none, we will now move to a vote on Article 2. This vote requires a simple majority. Does everyone have their handheld device? When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare Article 2 as passed with 177 votes in favor and 15 opposed. The next article is Article 3. This is also an essential article. Article 3 is on page 12 of your handbook. It requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on this article?
Yes, we do.
I recognize Chair Mastrangelo.
We move that the town vote to amend the action taken under Article 4, ISWAM budget of the 2024 annual town meeting by 1, increasing expenses by $2,250,000 from $8,348,178 to $10,598,178. 2, increasing the host community fee by $105,000 from $925,000 to $1,030,000. And 3, increasing the amount raised from ISWAM enterprise receipts from $14,792,810 to $17,147,810.
Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. This article amends the FY25 ISWAM budget to increase the amount budgeted to pay the host community fee to the town of Bourne. The host community fee per ton is set by the state on a calendar year basis. The ISWAM budget needs to have sufficient funds budgeted to cover the actual host community fee. Based on projections, the budget needs to be increased and the town would receive $1,030,000 in host community fees in FY25. The actual amount received is based on tons processed. In FY25, the amount ISWAM host community fee budgeted as revenue to the town is $600,000. Excess revenue over the host community budgeted amount is deposited in the Capital Stabilization Fund. Article 5 of this town meeting transfers $419,000 in excess host community fees to the Capital Stabilization account for FY24. Based on the current projection for FY25, the excess host community fee will be $430,000, and the ISWAM budget needs to be adjusted to accommodate this amount. Other contracted service expenses are increased primarily to fund the cost of removing leachate and processing construction and demolition debris. These two items under contracted services are usually the biggest expenses for ISWAM. Leachate disposal costs have increased, and rain events have increased the amount of leachate. C&D transfer cost increases result in increased host community fee revenue. These costs will be paid by ISWAM revenue. A yes or I vote in favor of the motion increases the FY25 ISWAM enterprise budget to allow the proposed adjustments. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion keeps the FY25 ISWAM enterprise budget as it was voted in May, and there would not be sufficient funds in the budget to cover these expenses. The Select Board voted unanimously, 5-0-0, to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Amanda Bongiovanni.
The Finance Committee voted the Finance Committee voted 6 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 3? Seeing none, we can move to a vote on Article 3. This vote requires a simple majority. Using our handheld devices, when I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 181 votes in favor and 16 opposed. The next essential article is Article 6 on page 15 of your handbook. This requires a simple majority. Hold on, wrong page. This requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 6?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Anne-Marie Sarunian.
We move that the town vote to appropriate $1,403,000 to pay costs of the capital outlay projects listed in the schedule printed below, and to meet this appropriation to 1, transfer the sum of $1,077,000 from free cash, 2, transfer $56,000 from the Waterways Improvement Fund, and 3, transfer the sum of $270,000 from the Integrated Solid Waste Management retained earnings.
You have the floor, Ms. Sarunian.
This article appropriates funding for capital expenditures recommended by the Capital Outlay Committee. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would approve the capital expenditures recommended by the Capital Outlay Committee for fiscal year 2020-25. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would mean that the capital expenditures recommended by the Capital Outlay Committee would not be funded, and these needs would not be addressed in fiscal year 2025. Select Board recommended voting unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Wayne Sampson.
The Finance Committee voted 6 in favor, 1 opposed, to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 6?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
All right. Please go ahead, Ms. Sarunian.
Just a quick snapshot of each of the A through J categories. For DPW, the Main Street lighting, the sidewalk project on the west end of Main Street is complete with Academy Drive, and in that project there were some infrastructure with respects to footing and conduits for future lighting. So 2 lampposts will be installed on each side of the crosswalk for, to provide a safer and well-lit crossing. B, engineering Eel Pond Road drainage. This is in response to our regulations for best stormwater management practices. It's for remediation in the Back River area, and the monies used will be to install an oil grit separator, as well as enlarging the leaching field so we can better collect the stormwater and properly treat it. The DNR equipment, the pump-out boat is currently a 2008 model and in dire need of replacement. The wave attenuator, which is sort of acts as a break wall over at Monument Beach Marina, that's to protect, obviously, the infrastructure of the pier and the patrons' boats. That also needs repair. It's falling off. The Taylor's Point Marina, that is a replacement of some pilings. So the majority of the cost there, approximately $20,000, is for the barge to bring in the piling driver. And each of the pilings run between $1,500 to $2,500. Fire equipment, the cardiac monitor and chest compressor systems, we currently have 6. They're outdated. This will replace 6 of a high-quality Lucas chest compressors, which are done mechanically and better serves, obviously, the patients in the fire department. So that $400,000 will come from free cash to replace that equipment. For the fire and smoke alarms for the community buildings, they're the existing building, original smoke and fire alarm detectors, also outdated, antiquated. Those will need to replace, and that's all encompassing with what's needed for equipment to replace that system. The ICE, Integrated Solid Waste Management, the C&D fire suppression is experiencing some pinholes. So before that has a catastrophic failure and we have a fire at the dump, which we certainly don't want, that is to replace the suppression system. Also at the Integrated Solid Waste Management, the 20-acre parcel of land, which we already own, that's for the next phase of development with the expansion project that's been going for about 8 years now. And that monies will be used to first mitigate and ensure the habitat and preserve the habitat of the eastern box turtle. And the remaining monies will be used for clearing for the next phase. I believe it's phase 7. I don't see Dan in the audience. Phase 7 of the... Move to, okay.
Can you repeat what he said? Because we couldn't hear him.
Oh, sorry. It'll be actually to clear and move the infrastructure that's on that area so that they can continue the expansion project.
Thank you.
And then the last is the school department. The BMS chiller has failed. We tried to do some replacement parts for it. However, it has recently failed. So the $280,000 is to replace that chiller that serves the administrative areas, the library, some storage areas, a large classroom, and office areas.
Thank you for that. Ms. Sarunian, is there any further discussion on this Article 6? Hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 6. This vote requires a simple majority. Using your handheld devices, when I tell you to vote, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 187 votes in favor and 16 opposed. The next essential article is Article 7 on page 16 of your handbook. Article 7 on page 16 of your handbook requires a 2/3 majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 7?
Yes, we do.
I recognize Peter Meyer.
Yes. We move that the town appropriates $1,270,000 for the purpose of purchasing and equipping a new fire pump and engine, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow the said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefor.
I have a second. Mr. Meyer, you have the floor.
Thank you. The reason for replacing this engine is the NFPA Standard 1901 recommends removal from frontline service engines after 15 years, and out of all service after 25 years. The current engine is now 30 years old and well outside the NFPA standard. More importantly, the vehicle is functionally obsolete. There is very little storage space in the vehicle to carry any of the required equipment needed for rescue operations. With a lack of exterior compartment space, we have been forced to carry equipment in the passenger compartment, which is hazardous to our personnel. Also, over 30 years, there's been a number of safety features that are now included in this new fire apparatus. A yes or aye vote in favor of this motion would allow the fire department to place an order for a new engine to replace the current engine in 1994. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not allow the fire department to order a new engine, and the 1994 truck would remain in service.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Wayne Sampson.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously, 7-0, to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 7?
George Seaver, Katamata. It's a question, does the old fire engine have any value to elsewhere?
Madam Moderator, I will defer to the fire chief.
I will ask Chief Palonzi to answer your question. Thank you, Mr. Seaver.
Good evening, Dave Palonzi, Sagamore Beach, also Chief of Department, Bourne Fire Rescue. Right now, the vehicle has no value to us. I don't know if there's an inherent value. If there is, we could try to trade it in towards the cost, but I don't know that there is. Otherwise, we could offer it up for sale on something like Munibid.
Thank you. Is that okay, Mr. Seaver? Does that answer your question? Are you going to offer it up for sale or trade it in?
Yes, we're going to dispose of it.
Thank you. They're going to dispose of it. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions or discussion on Article 7? Anyone? Seeing none, we can move to a vote on Article 7. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. Using our handheld devices, when I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board has passed with 198 votes in favor and 11 opposed. Article 8 on page 17 is the next essential article. It also requires a 2/3 majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 8?
Yes, we do.
I recognize Peter Meyer.
Thank you. We move that the town appropriate $765,000 for the purposes of installing a new roof and completing various masonry repairs at Fire Station Number 3 at 51 Meeting House Lane, Sagamore Beach, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow the said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore.
Mr. Meyer, you have the floor.
Thank you. The roof at the Sagamore Fire Station, built in 2005, has been leaking for a number of years, and patching it has not been effective. This article would fund the full replacement of the roof, along with critical masonry repairs, which are also contributing to water infiltration. Money will also be available for temporary trailer if needed, if it's determined that the fire department must move out of the third floor of the building during construction. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion provides funding for a new roof and masonry repairs at the Sagamore Fire Station. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion means that the funding will not be provided and the project cannot proceed at this time. The Select Board vote is unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on Article 8?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Wayne Sampson.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously, 7-0, to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Article 8?
I'm Francis Jakowski, and I'm new here. And I wonder, when we approach an article like 8, which is going to be a construction item, is this money based on approved estimates that were put out to bid? How did we arrive at that number?
Thank you. I'm going to ask the town administrator to answer your question, Mr. Tchaikovsky.
Thank you.
I'm Marlene McCollum, Town Administrator. This project has not yet been put out to bid. In order to sign a contract after going out to bid, we have to have the money in hand. So this is a cost estimate prepared by our construction engineers. We hired Gale Associates, which are an envelope specialists. They reviewed the existing plans. They did just test cuts to verify the information on the roof. And now we are in design for the roof. We will have more final design plans later this winter, and then we hope to put the project out to bid this summer.
Thank you. Is that sufficient, Mr. Tchaikovsky? Did that answer your question? I'll allow it.
If we come in at 500,000, what happens to the extra money?
We would only borrow what actually gets spent on the project. So if we only need $500,000 to do the roof, the excess borrowing authority would be rescinded at a future town meeting.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much for that. Is there any further discussion on Article 8? Hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 8. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. Using our handheld devices, when I tell you, you may begin voting. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 189 votes in favor and 21 opposed. We're now going to, that was the last essential article, so we are now going to draw articles out of the lottery. Article 15. Article 15 on page 25 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a recommendation or a positive motion on Article 15?
Yes, Madam Moderator, we do.
I recognize Chair Mastrangelo.
Thank you. Before I read the motion, I just want to note that I'll be reading a motion on this article that is different from Section B of the motion in the handbook. A separate handout with the revised motion has been distributed with your books. The reason for the change is that there was unnecessary wording at the beginning of Section B of the motion, transferring care, custody, and control. The Select Board already has control of the property, and no transfer is required.
Thank you.
Motion, we move to A, authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain the fee and/or permanent and/or temporary easements and/or other real property interests for the purposes of establishing, constructing, operating, and maintaining a shared use path for non-motorized transportation, open space, and recreation purposes, and for all other purposes for which shared use paths are now or hereinafter may be used in the Commonwealth, including, without limitation, for the construction, installation, maintenance, improvement, repair, replacement, and/or relocation of rights-of-way, sidewalks, drainage, utilities, driveways, guardrails, slopes, grading, rounding, landscaping, parking areas, and other appurtenances and/or facilities to enable the town to undertake the Bourne Rail Trail Phase 1 project, and for any and all purposes incidental or related thereto, in, on, over, across, under, and along all or any portion of certain parcels of land located on or near the railroad right-of-way, running from Monument Neck Road at President's Road to the intersection with the Cape Cod Canal bike path at the railroad bridge, and approximately shown on a plan entitled Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division Plan and Profile of the Bourne Rail Trail Phase 1 in the town of Bourne, Barnstable County, preliminary right-of-way plans dated October 6, 2020, prepared by Green Seal Environmental, Inc., a copy of which is on file with the town clerk, and as may be amended and/or incorporated into an easement plan. B, to dedicate a portion or portions of the town-owned property or property shown on the aforesaid plan to shared use path purposes. C, to appropriate and transfer from community preservation open space reserves the amount of $80,000 for the costs of said project, activities and acquisitions, including all costs, fees, and expenses incidental or related thereto, including but not limited to the cost of any easement acquisitions, appraisals, and survey. And D, authorize the select board to enter into all agreements and take any and all actions as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the foregoing purposes.
Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. The town is currently in the final stages of design for Phase 1 of the Bourne Rail Trail. This 10-foot wide, half-mile long segment of shared use path for pedestrians and bicycles requires temporary landscape and construction easements in order to build the shared use path, as well as a lease from the state for the path itself. The path is located on a railroad connector owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There are 3 private abutters requiring a temporary easement, as well as a temporary easement of land owned by the Army Corps of Engineers, federal government, and the Commonwealth. This article would allow the Select Board to acquire the temporary easements necessary to construct the half-mile Phase 1 shared use path that will be paid for under the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, with federal and other non-federal funds, but not town funding for construction. Planning for the shared use path began with the Transportation Advisory Committee, which resulted in a report by the Cape Cod Commission in April of 2017. The Pedestrian and Bike Path Committee was formed in 2018, and serious work for the shared use path began. Phase 1 of the bike path has been listed on the TIP since 2019 and is eligible for funding and to go out to bid in the spring of 2025. This funding for the easements is critical to complete the 100% design and the inclusion on the 2025 TIP. Based on the feedback from the most recent public meeting in September, The design of the path now includes a turnaround at Stackpole Park to have riders coming from the canal turn around until Phase 2 is designed. This shared use path provides new and improved access for Gray Gables and Shore Road residents to the canal path at the train bridge. The tip analysis of this project has shown that this project will reduce carbon emissions and improve air quality. Recent studies have shown that pedestrian bike path projects return more economic benefit for each dollar spent on the path. The benefits of the shared use path include economic benefits for improving the local economy for businesses and tax revenue from hotel and meals taxes, health benefits by increasing the level of physical activity for those who live nearby, which includes saving on healthcare expenditures. Transportation benefits, more people using a shared use path instead of their car, resulting in reduction of emissions, convenience, and reduced costs. Environmental benefits. The reduction in motor vehicle trips results in savings from reduction in the social costs of greenhouse gas and other emissions. The Phase 1 project has been certified as a CMAQ, Commonwealth of Massachusetts Air Quality Approved project that will decrease emissions by 69,198 kilograms per year. Accessibility and equity. Paths connect people with destinations, providing access to schools and universities, healthcare, government buildings, and other necessities. Shared use paths provide equitable access to people who can walk or ride a bike, and not just people who have a car. Improve safety for nearby residents who wish to access the canal area by foot or bicycle. Shared use paths allow people to more easily bike or walk to where they want to go, provide an opportunity for people to get fresh air and exercise, and attract tourists from out of town. This request is only for the funding of the easements required for construction of Phase 1 of the shared use path. It does not indicate support for how other phases of the project will be implemented. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would allow the town to secure the easements necessary to construct Phase 1 of the Bourne Rail Trail. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would mean the town would not be able to construct Phase 1 of the Bourne Rail Trail at this time after years of work. For more information about Article 15, please refer to supporting documentation found in Appendix D. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Carla Emmons.
The Finance Committee voted 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained in support of this bill.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 15? I recognize Mr. Barnes first. Mr. Chachowski.
Madam Moderator, I make a motion to indefinitely postpone this article at this time.
This article requires a second. Do I have a second? I have a motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15 and a second. This is debatable. Can you please go ahead, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Barnes.
I want to say, first of all, I'm very supportive of the rail to trail. I think it'd be a great thing for the town of Bourne. I would look forward to it, and I'm one of the 3 abutters that have been mentioned. I can speak on behalf of another abutter who also would be opposed to agreeing to the easements which are required for this to be accepted. So at least 2 out of 3, and I don't know the other one. We would oppose the easements at this time. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, I just think it's too soon. I think we should take it up next year when they've finished, when the committee for the rail to trail has actually finished their business. We don't even know yet whether the rest of the trail is going to be rail with trail or rail to trail. And the last time we were at a public meeting, they could not promise that it would not be rail with trail. Big difference between rail to trail and rail with trail. And they said they couldn't make that promise. So we don't know if it's going to be rail with trail or rail to trail, but we're starting off here rail with trail, which also means a lot more space taken up by the path. It also means a chain link fence, the length of the rail, between the rail and the sea. So there are a lot of negatives. Everybody has an opinion, I'm sure. Another point is we were supposed to have had a walk, as the abutters, we were supposed to have had a walkthrough with assessors as to what the impact would be on our property. As an abutter, we were told that they would be taking part of our land temporarily for 2 years to use during construction, but we don't know how much. We don't know which sheds or trees are going to have to go. My neighbor has concerns that the work is going to be on top of her leach field. So not that these can't be resolved, but they haven't been resolved yet. So I think it's incumbent on the committee to answer these questions, to make promises that we can rely on before they ask us to sign for an easement. The eminent domain thing also concerns me because, and that would affect, I guess, everyone along the rail, along the trail. That was ruled out the one time when I met with the town. Now I see it in this article. So for all of those reasons, I would say let's just postpone this, get these things settled, and then take it up again next year. And again, I'm fully supportive of rail to trail, but not rail with trail, which would cost also about 4 times as much. Thank you.
Thank you. You may go ahead, Mr. Chachowski.
Are we discussing the proposed,
The only thing on the floor right now is the proposed motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15. I'm going to let everyone who wants to be heard on this motion speak, and then we will vote on that. It's a simple majority vote. If the body decides to indefinitely postpone Article 15, we will not move to a vote on Article 15.
I agree that we should definitely,
It's indefinitely postponed.
indefinitely postpone this vote. It's a very important thing, and it's economic, and it's freedom. I mean, so far what we have here is the hard work of a very few people who are attempting to take away from many people, and it's going to benefit almost no one at a cost to everyone. Don't let them kid you about not raising the taxes because of this, because the town isn't paying for it. Nothing is for free. And when we filter your tax money through the federal dollar, I guarantee you, you do not get 100 cents on a dollar back.
Thank you. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, David McPherson from Pocasset, and I'm chairman of the advisory committee that's been working on this project for 6 years. I don't speak for the full committee because we haven't had the chance to discuss this motion, but I personally would oppose the attempt to indefinitely postpone. I can't speak exactly to the right-of-way process. I would defer to the town administrator or the town engineer about how that whole process plays out. But I want to explain the implications of postponing this at this point. The town has been in line for this project and for this money for 5 years. It's a long process. We are now at the front of the line. It's a very competitive process for this money. There are currently over $300 million worth of transportation projects on Cape Cod that are unfunded. If we walk away from this money at the very last minute, we could lose out. There are similar projects on the drawing boards in Sandwich, Barnstable, Yarmouth, Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown, and potentially some others. If we walk away from this money, I am sure they will be glad to step in. As to the claim that a small group of people got together to try and take somebody's rights away, that is a mistaken. Our committee has had at least 6 public hearings on various phases of this project. Of the 6 meetings we've had, only 1 was required by law. We have gone out of our way to solicit public input. The design you see tonight was partly a result of feedback we received from the residents of Gray Gables. So the idea that we somehow met behind closed doors to foist this upon people is offensive to me. This is an opportunity to bring something positive to the town of Bourne. You go to any other community that has a bike path, and it is spectacular. Bike path projects like this, the reality is they're built in phases. Yesterday, I took a ride to Mattapoisett to visit the Mattapoisett Rail Trail, which has been in process a lot longer than this one and is partially completed. And the part they've completed is absolutely gorgeous. I suggest you take a ride. The geography is very similar to what we have in Bourne. This was never going to be an easy project. If I wanted to get something done easily in the town of Bourne, this is not what I would have volunteered for.
Thank you. That is 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. McPherson.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Please no applause. I know he's a good public speaker. Thank you. I recognize the town engineer, Tim Leyden.
Madam Moderator. Tim Leyden of the Engineering Department. I've worked here for 10 years. I've been the lead on this project since 2018. This project got put on the tip in 2019, right when it was a conceptual project. To dovetail on David's comments, it's not very common that a project jumps right on the tip and you have a chance at a $4 million project. I want to drive that home because this is an incredible opportunity, and I think I'm remiss, Mr. Barnes might have stepped out. I feel like I let him down. I thought I could meet with everybody and discuss how if you want a Rail 2 Trail project, this phase 1 is integral to that. We can't get the rest of that project and get the project we want, which has been a community-driven project since the beginning, and it still will remain a community-driven project. So if you have things that you would think could be make this project better, we are all ears, and there's plenty of time to give us some feedback over the next couple months to add some components that maybe make this better, or how you think it should go. We have the chance to have a 10-foot wide path, a world-class amenity for pedestrians and not just bicyclists, a high school kid training for soccer, or going to get coffee and catching up with an old friend, walking your dog. And I think this is actually the perfect project for the south side that doesn't have a lot of construction improvements. The town of Bourne is in line to get $4 million from the state. Typically, and you'll see it over the next couple of years play out, a lot of money go to the bridges, a lot of money go to MacArthur Boulevard, a lot of money to get people to go through Bourne. And this is money for us. So I just wanted to drive that home before you take this vote. And I'll have other comments as other comments come up. But that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Mark Emmons, Monument Beach. I'm in favor of not postponing this vote. I attended the information meeting held here in this building in September. And just a point of clarification in that Phase 1, since that is owned by the Army Corps, there will always be a rail component with the Phase 1 because of the need for a turnaround of any potential right-of-way of trains going across the canal bridge or going to Hyannis. So there's a point made that it's not decided at this point about a Rail 2 trail or a Rail with trail. Phase 1 is going to always have a rail component for the access needs for turnarounds to the bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would like to, at this time, I'm going to not call for a vote just yet. I'm going to ask if the select board has a recommendation on indefinite postponement of this article.
Thank you. The select board remains in session through the entire town meeting so that we can take votes as necessary for articles. And the Select Board has voted unanimously, 5-0-0, to recommend a no vote on indefinite postponement to defeat indefinite postponement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will now ask if the Finance Committee has a position on indefinite postponement.
We do, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Could you have the floor, Ms.
Thank
Emmons?
you. We also remain in session during this period of time, and the Finance Committee voted unanimously to oppose this motion to indefinitely suspend the article.
Thank you. So you're recommending a no vote on this?
A no vote.
On this motion. Okay. If no one else would like to be heard on the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15, we can move to a vote on the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15. If you have a question or clarification, please approach the podium.
It's not a question or clarification. I'd just like to voice my...
If you're offering your opinion, can you state your name, please?
Yes, my name's John York. I live in Katomet.
Thank you.
I think that postponing this article would be a mistake for many of the reasons you've heard. I'm a little disappointed that our town hadn't done more homework before tonight in speaking to the specific abutters who are affected, but as you see, this article is to authorize the selectmen to enter into negotiations and do what's necessary to obtain those. So the article does provide for that to happen. I know this, the selectmen want this bike path, but they also want to make sure it's what the community wants. That's why they want it. And I think that for all the other reasons said about the fact that this is we're stepping in the middle of the planning of a project because special town meeting is tonight, and wherever that project is tonight is where that project is, but it needs this vote in order to proceed on the currently planned schedule for this project. And as described, we would be losing the funding that's currently available. That's not to say we couldn't get funding back on a different schedule, but that seems to be risky. And I just want to say a couple of things about the value of this bike path. Our town does not provide after-school buses for people who participate in school sports. If you live in Gray Gables and you have to come home from work at a certain time of day, bring your child home from the high school because they're in the drama club and they're there late or whatever. It's 2 miles from the high school to Gray Gables via this bike path, of which the only over-the-road stretch is walking down Cotuit Road next to the old Cody School to access the canal path. The rest is off-road, totally safe for a 16-year-old who wants to ride his bike home or her bike home from any after-school activity. And I don't know the number of how many hundred children that is, but that's a lot of children, and I know that there's a significant number of those who live in Gray Gables. That's just one example of how a bike path contributes to the functions of our town. So I just want you to think about that, or just families who want to go, the kids in the family want to go watch the railroad bridge go down when the dinner train goes over it, and they live in Gray Gables. Right now, they get in their car with their mom, drive over Shore Road, park in the parking lot, take up space in the Corps of Engineers parking lot, have a great time watching the train, and drive home.
Thank you, Mr. York.
Could be a
That's 3
10-minute
minutes.
walk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15? Hearing none, we will move to a vote on the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15. A yes vote would indefinitely postpone Article 15. We wouldn't take a vote on it. A no vote would allow us to proceed with the debate on Article 15 and move to a vote on it. Using your handheld device, you can use the green button for yes, red button for no. You may begin voting now. And this vote requires a simple majority. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 15 has failed with no 165 votes, yes 51 votes. We will now continue with the discussion on Article 15. I believe we left off with the Select Board having made their motion and discussion, and now we are going to hear from the Finance Committee as to whether or not they have a recommendation for Article 15.
Yes, Madam Moderator, we do.
Thank you. I recognize Ms. Emmons.
The Finance Committee voted 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained.
Thank you
in
very much.
recommendation of the article.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on Article 15? Yes, ma'am, you may approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Robin McIntyre, Bourne Village. We are abutters to the proposed rail with trail on Bell Road, although our property would not be directly impacted by the project other than users parking on Bell Road, as they currently do. I'm in support of the rail trail, but not in support of this article. It clearly puts the cart before the horse. Phase 1 has been proposed in isolation. Unless there's a comprehensive package where the entire thing can be built, they're looking at $4 million. We're talking about half a mile. That would be, we talked about the benefits. I'm a physical therapist, 38 years. I know the benefit of exercise. I use the canal service road 5 out of 7 days of the week, year round. I know that. We're talking about half a mile. We're not talking about a long thing. Anyways, so I think unless we're looking at a comprehensive package of all 4 phases together, I would vote no against this article.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Szychowski.
Presently, we're moving trash along the rail trail, and I feel that this is the first step in attempting to move that rail because it's in the way and its infrastructure seems like it wants to be grabbed by the trail people to put a bicycle path on. There's not too many things that are uglier than a chain link fence. I have seen no artistic proposals of how you manage to get through the marshes and how you manage to actually share this place with the train, which is also a very scenic thing. I ride a bike too, and there's nothing nicer than riding along and watching trains and seeing train operators and seeing tracks being fixed. These trains don't speed through here at 90 miles an hour. You all know that. They just creep. Rail is about the most efficient way to go ahead and transfer stuff. It's not quite as efficient as boat, but that would be kind of a tough infrastructure to set up for moving trash. There's about 300 trucks a month that would travel across our bridges in order to replace those trains, if and when that should happen. I heard one person say, oh no, it's not going to happen. This is a proposal for a shared right-of-way. A shared right-of-way with obviously obstructions for safety for the rail and for the riders. It's a lot prettier to do that by separation. A 10-foot path with a 30-foot space between the train would certainly be safe for everybody, and it wouldn't interfere with anyone's view. It's possible to have a rail with a trail, but I don't believe you're headed that way. And $3 million for half a mile is just unbelievable.
Thank you. I'm going to let the town engineer respond to that. Thank you.
So this project started out as a $1.9 million project. It's now a $4 million project. And I will say that the railroad has taken every opportunity to make every safety upgrade in this project. A rail with trail is a dangerous proposal. That chain link fence is integral to that, but they have made several upgrades that have increased the cost because there's, force accounts, or whatever the maneuver is to add cost to the project. So that's kind of my response to that. And then to Robin's point, Phase 2, Phase 3, and Phase 4, that's a whole nother discussion. We're talking about temporary easements tonight, but I will say Phase 1 is only a half a mile of path, and you know, in our understanding, I don't want to speak for the committee, but if it sets off the biking craze that adds so many more cars coming to that area, we can react to add parking. There's places to add parking. We just wouldn't want to be proactive and waste your tax dollars to create parking ahead of time. So I just would like you guys to know that these are things we do talk about. We do understand that there could be more parking that's necessary, and if there's parking issues, we will address that as a community with signage, curbing, things of the like. But we do have opportunities to put parking on Phase 2 that would add a lot of parking for that stretch on the upper portion between Monument Beach and Gray Gables and Bourne Village. So,
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Article 15? I'll allow it. Do you have something new to add?
Yes, just I wanted to point out there's discussion about, questions about other phases. I want to make everybody aware that on November 14th, Mass DOT is scheduled to have a public meeting here in Bourne specifically to discuss Phase 2, which shows to me that they're quite serious about moving forward with Phase 2. And the only other thing I wanted to say was with regards to, people saying only a half mile and so forth. Construction of this project will provide an immediate benefit to the residents of the Gray Gables and Monument neighborhoods by improving access to the canal area. If you're a resident of those areas, you will be able to safely reach the canal, either whether it's on foot or by bicycle. And so it's not, no matter what happens in the future, that path is going to serve residents from day one.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Ken Chetland. I live in Pecasset. I am on the Town Administrators Advisory Committee on Bicycle Pedestrian Pathway, but I am speaking tonight as the president of the Friends of the Bourne Rail Trail. We're the organization has started this project and been working on it since 2016. I just want to say that I really strongly recommend that we approve this article, and I speak for the board of the Friends in saying that. It has been a long process. We are at a critical juncture. If we want this rail trail to happen, we need to signal with our willingness to spend this relatively small amount of money, considering the cost of the entire rail trail, to demonstrate to the state that we're serious about this project. In the end, the Friends of the Bourne Rail Trail believe strongly that this will be a Rail 2 trail project, that the track will be removed. It is really the only way that we will be able to build phases 3 and 4, the southernmost pieces, which would include the end of the Bourne Rail Trail and the extension of the Shining Sea Bikeway. We've come to that conclusion after many years of studying this. We have also demonstrated through design work that if the groups that feel that a train track is necessary still feel that way, that there's a way to build a new track along MacArthur Boulevard that would be a state-of-the-art track if they want to go that route. But the existing track does not serve anything but 2 private industries and is limited in its speed because of its state of disrepair. And the military is the only other potential interest in that track, and they haven't used it in a significant way since World War II. It's also important to note, because there's been some misinformation tonight, that the track is not used to move any municipal trash at all from any of the 4 Upper Cape towns. Literally, the only debris that's moved along that track is construction and demolition debris moved by a private company. So it's a taxpayer subsidized track that's not being used for any taxpayer purpose at this point. And I think that's really important for us to keep in mind. Tom Cahere and the CCRTA has secured $25 million of federal funding for us to build this track, this trail rather, and that will be dependent on removal of the track. Right now, we're lucky enough to have state federal funding for this first piece. I strongly recommend that we move forward on it tonight if we hope to have the Bourne Rail Trail at any point in the future in this town. It will be a world-class amenity. It will be a huge asset of the town, and I think we'll all look back on this moment as a pivotal one. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Please.
Tainter from Bourne. Just some clarification. Are we voting on just stage one, or are we voting on all 4 stages of the easement?
I believe it's stage 1, but I'm going to let the town administrator answer that for the best information.
Yes, it's only phase 1. It's the easements necessary to construct the northern half mile.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Thank you. Go ahead.
Susan Barricchini, Pocasset. I am in a butter of the property in phase 3, where we are on Wing Road. And a couple of things, just to note that DOT meeting, I think, is really pivotal because it allows us a chance to get in front of them, hear what they have to say for not just this first half mile, but the other, the remaining of the 6.2 miles. A couple of things. The train does go by a lot less frequently than it did when we first moved there. Even when we first started clearing the property in 1998, it went by 4 times a day, like clockwork. 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. Full and empty, full and empty. As of, I know you mentioned World War II, I just want to correct that because the military did actually bring back equipment from Desert Storm and the operations to bring the equipment back to the base to study, to move it on to other bases where they could study the condition of the equipment after the war in the sand. So that was the last military use of those train tracks. I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is the meeting on November 14th will be held at the Pocasset Community Building at 314 Barlow's Landing Road. I encourage you to attend. It could be standing room only. It's not that large of a building, but I'm just telling you, I'm the manager of the building. I know the meeting is going to happen there. So if you want to attend, it's November 14th at 314 Barlow's Landing Road. A question, if we don't, is the $4 million for that entire half mile? Do they expect any bit to be left over? Is it all part of design work and construction, is my question.
Thank you.
The $4 million is for the half mile on the northern end of the railroad right-of-way. These are construction estimates at this time. The state will have to put the project out to bid, and obviously if they can spend less, they will sign on a contractor to build it for less.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has anything new to add on Article 15? Go ahead, Mr. Barnes. You've spoken for 3 minutes, though, already.
Excuse me?
You have spoken for 3 minutes on this, so please bring something new.
I just want to say again, I consider myself a friend of the rail to trail, but not of the rail with trail. And what we're approving right now is rail with trail. And I understand about the spur, but as a town, right now, we're voting to approve an article that now we've heard from the 3 abutters to this first phase all disapprove. None of the 3 abutters approve what we're doing tonight. And also, we're voting on 1 phase of 4 phases, maybe 4 million of maybe 80 million. So we're starting a project like we're starting a foundation, no idea what the house is going to look like. But so that we're voting on a partial project without any guarantees whether it's going to be rail to trail, rail with trail, or any of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Go ahead.
Ken Chetland again. I just wanted to clear up a couple things. There are, in fact, far fewer trains running on this track now than there were historically, and that's because the track is no longer used as it was then for moving town's trash. As I said, it only moves construction and demolition debris. Secondly, I didn't want to suggest that the military has never used that track since World War II. I said they've never used it for any significant purpose. That was a convenience. They had other options at the time, but they did in fact use it very briefly after 9/11. And finally, I wanted to make it really clear that the $25 million in funding that we have available to us is federal funding. It's been obtained by the CCRTA, the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, but it is in fact federal funding. And of course, we as taxpayers, we pay federal tax, we pay state, but this will not involve any state or local funding if we can pull up the track, which is in fact the intention. This will be, as I said, a Rail 2 Trail project. We've demonstrated it can't be done any other way. That doesn't mean we can't start it with the plan, and the only phase that could even conceivably be done rail with trail is this first phase, which is why it makes sense to get it going now. There's lots of reasons it's not appropriate to go into it, why rail with trail for the whole project's not possible, but one of them is that it's estimated to cost $80 million, and in fact, if we pull up the track, we can build this trail in the range of $20 to $25 million. Thank you.
Thank you. If nobody else would like to be heard on Article 15, all right. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Philip Burgess. I live in Pocasset. I'm going to just say one thing. It goes by my property. I count the cars. There's 10 cars full of construction trash. Do you want that going over the road? And what are you going to do with it when the bridges are down? Think about it.
Thank you. We're not going to go back and forth on these points. We're going to move to a vote on Article 15 now. Thank you, everyone who contributed to the debate on this article. Okay. Article 15 requires a simple majority vote. Does everyone have their handheld device? When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board has passed with 156 votes in favor and 63 opposed. Please no applause. Thank you. All right, Article 5. Article 5 on page 14 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 5?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Gina Zarovitz.
Thank you. We move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $419,000 for the purpose of this article to meet this appropriation to transfer the sum of $419,000 from free cash.
Mrs. Zarovitz, you have the floor.
Passage of this article will allow any host community fees generated by ISWIM in fiscal year 2024 in excess of $600,000 to be added to the Capital Stabilization Fund that was established on the 2007 annual town meeting. The monies accumulated in the fund will help defray the cost of future capital projects approved by the town. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion provides funding to meet the financial policy for building the Capital Stabilization Fund. This will help ensure that funds continue to be set aside for the long-term maintenance of the town's capital assets. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not provide additional funding for the Capital Stabilization Fund. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation on this article?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Wayne Sampson.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 5? Seeing none from the floor, we can move to a vote on Article 5. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Pressing the green button for yes, red for no, you may begin voting on Article 5 now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 177 votes in favor and 14 opposed. Article 12. Article 12 on page 22 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 12?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Anne-Marie Sarunian.
We move the town vote Article 12 as set forth in the warrant.
Ms. Sarunian, you have the floor.
The article amends the Town of Bourne General Bylaws, Article 8, Section 8.1.1, membership of the Community Preservation Committee, by deleting the text of the current Section 8.1.1 in its entirety and inserting new Section 8.1.1 in place of same, as recommended by the Open Space and Community Preservation Committees. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion will amend the bylaw. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion will leave the current language in the bylaw. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Priscilla Harcourt.
Thank you. The Finance Committee voted the following for Article 12: 6 in favor of recommendation, 0 nay, and 1 abstained.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 12?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
Ms. Sarunian, you have the floor.
The CPC opted to replace this section of the article in lieu of strikeouts and bolded text. There are 3 changes to note. Instead of just a single member of the Housing Authority, the Housing Partnership will designate a member. They've opted to reduce the Open Space Committee membership from 4 to 2, and those 2 remaining members will be selected and designated by the Select Board.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Article 12? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 12. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Okay, voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 178 votes in favor and 10 opposed. Thank you. Article 4. Sorry. Article 4 on page 13 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on this article?
We do, Madam Moderator.
Thank you.
We move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $1,004,000 for the purposes of funding the town's other post-employment benefits OPEB liability, and to meet this appropriation to transfer the OPEB trust fund the sums of $714,000 from free cash, $30,000 from sewer retained earnings, and $260,000 from ISWIM retained earnings.
Mrs. Zarovitz, you have the floor.
This article continues that the OPEB funding contribution based on the financial policy established in 2018. The policy states that we will contribute 10% of the excess certified free cash over policy to the OPEB trust fund. This year's contribution is $714,000 for employees of the town. In addition, the article funds an OPEB contribution for ISWIM employees at $260,000 and sewer employees at $30,000 for a total of $1,004,000 to be added to the OPEB trust fund. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion provides funding to meet the financial policy for OPEB. This will help maintain the town's high bond rating. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not provide additional funding for OPEB. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Jim Sullivan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to support this article.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 4? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 4. This vote requires a simple majority. Using your handheld device, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 171 votes in favor and 13 opposed. Thank you. Article 13. Article 13 on page 23 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 13?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Anne-Marie Sarunian.
We move Article 13 as set forth in the warrant.
Thank you. Ms. Sarunian, you have the floor.
This article amends the town bylaw Historic Demolition Delay Section 3.14 to preserve and protect historically significant buildings in the town that are scheduled to be torn down as part of a site plan or building permit application. The Historical Commission proposes 3 amendments as follows. 1, in the definition section 3.14.2, there is total demolition and partial demolition. The amendment would add in the word alteration to the partial demolition definition to provide clarification that alterations are referred to the Historical Commission. Examples of alterations are replacing a window with a door, replacing windows with walls, or expanding a doorway. The second change gives the Historical Commission 45 days rather than 30 days of its receipt of an application to conduct a public hearing, and the last change is to reduce the public hearing notice advertising time frame from 14 days to 7 days. This helps to streamline and shorten the permitting process and review period. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would amend the bylaw. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion maintains the status quo, and the bylaw would not be recommended. The Select Board recommended 5-0-0.
Thank you, Ms. Sarunian. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Jim Sullivan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to support this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this article? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 13. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 157 votes in favor and 22 opposed. We have 5 articles left. Article 19. Article 19 on page 31 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 19? Oh. They do have a motion. I recognize Peter Meyer.
Thank you. We vote to authorize the Select Board to vote or otherwise dispose of the parcel of land, including all buildings and structures thereon at 90 Adams Street, Assessors Map 17.2, Parcel 7, under such terms as the Select Board determines to be in the town's best interest.
Mr. Meyer, you have the floor.
The Select Board will be working with the Sagamore Boosters Club to reconvey the property at 90 Adams Street back to the town based on a 1957 town meeting vote. This article would allow the town to auction, sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of the property after the deed transfers to the town of Bourne. It is not recommended to keep this property for municipal purposes. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would allow the town to sell or transfer the property to another entity. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not allow the town to sell or transfer the property in the future. The Select Board voted 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article. The Affordable Housing Trust and the Housing Partnership have also discussed this article and have unanimously approved taking the position that they would like to pursue this property contingent on any 21E coming back on the property for the purposes of affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Jim Sullivan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee voted 7-0 in favor of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 19? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 19. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 174 votes in favor and 11 opposed. Article 14. Article 14 on page 25 of your handbook requires a 2/3 majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 14?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Melissa Ferretti.
We move to authorize the transfer or care, custody, and control of land at 201 General MacArthur Boulevard, Bourne, Massachusetts, shown as Parcel A on a plan entitled Eastern Box Turtle Mitigation Plan, dated November 21st, 2022, recorded with the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 699, page 6, from the Integrated Solid Waste Management ISWIM Department to the Conservation Commission, said land being necessary as mitigation land for the eastern box turtle habitat in connection with the expansion of ISWIM facility, provided further that said land shall be dedicated to the Conservation Commission for the sole purpose of conservation of natural resources, included but not limited to the conservation of species listed pursuant to General Law C 131A and to protect the land in perpetuity under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission pursuant to JLC 40 S8C and Article 97 of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
You have the floor, Ms. Ferretti.
This vote is to affirm the affirm transfer of the town land and the Department of Integrated Solid Waste Management by the Select Board to the care, custody, and control of the Bourne Conservation Commission. For the information about the article, a yes or aye vote in favor of this motion will transfer the care, custody, and control of this property from Icewind to the Conservation Commission. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not transfer the care, custody, and control of this property of the land to the Conservation Commission, and Icewind would not be able to meet its obligations to provide mitigation land for the landfill expansion project. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you, Ms. Ferretti. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Tom Joyce.
The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this Article 14? Seeing none, we can move to a vote on Article 14. Did I hear anyone? No? Okay. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 180 votes in favor and 9 opposed. Article 1. Article 1 on page 11 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 1?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Gina Zarovitz.
We move that the town vote to hear reports and recommendations of committees, town, and state officers.
Mrs. Zarovitz, you have the floor.
This article allows for reports and recommendations to be presented by representatives of committees and town officers. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would allow committees to address town meeting and provide an update of their work. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion will not allow the committee representatives to provide a report to town meeting. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Jim Sullivan.
The Finance Committee voted 7-0 in favor of this article.
Thank you. All right, I was notified that there is one committee report that I will accept right now. Oh yeah, we haven't done the motion yet. I'm so sorry. I thought we were just going to get right into it. We have to take a vote first and then we can hear a report. Sorry. Is there any more discussion on Article 1? Hearing none, we can move to a vote. This requires a simple majority. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. All right, voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 136 in favor and 20 opposed. And with that, I recognize Chair Mastrangelo, who has a report to give.
Just a brief report. It's a select board report on the comprehensive wastewater management plan. This committee report is to update the town meeting on the development of the comprehensive wastewater management plan, or CWMP, which was undertaken by the Board of Sewer Commissioners in the fall of 2020. Based on the results of the town meeting vote on Article 11 of the special town meeting on November 2nd, 2021, the Select Board Sewer Commissioners have proceeded with a CWMP that does not include an outfall to the Cape Cod Canal. The Select Board and the Wastewater Advisory Committee have been meeting with consultants and have been working on a plan. We did take a pause for a bit of time while the DEP was working on Title V regulations. We wanted to have Title V final regulations before we kept going. We have held several workshops, meetings outside of regular select board meetings. Our next workshop meeting is this Friday, October 25th at 1 p.m. at Veterans Memorial Community Building. These workshop meetings are recorded and televised and streamed by Bourne Community TV. There's also a button on the town website homepage with information on the CWMP and the work that has been done. There are a lot of reports and other things there that are very helpful to understanding. We encourage public participation and will be scheduling a special meeting for public comment on the proposed CWMP before it goes to MIPA for review and approval. We expect to present the final CWMP at the annual town meeting in the spring of 2025 after the MIPA review. If you are interested in hearing the options and commenting on the plan, please watch or participate in our meetings and keep an eye out for the upcoming public meeting on the CWMP. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mastrangelo. I was not notified by any other boards or committees that there would be more reports tonight, but last call. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Sampson.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Sampson. I'm the chairperson of the Southside Fire Station Building Committee. Since our last report at the 2024 annual town meeting, we published a fourth request for proposals for available land that would meet the requirements of locating a Southside Fire Station. We received several proposals, and our committee made a recommendation that land located at 171 Clay Pond Road to the Board of Selectmen for consideration. At the present time, the town continues to conduct its due diligence so that you will have complete and accurate information to make a decision in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard under Article 1? Hearing none, we can move on to the next article in the lottery. Thank you. Article 16. Article 16 on page 28 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 16?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Melissa Ferretti.
We vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court to enact legislation to authorize the town to convey, amend, assign, or to otherwise transfer all of the town's rights, title, and interest in and to the conservation restriction registered with the Barnstable County District of the Land Court as document number 978790 from the town of Bourne through its Conservation Commission to Barnstable County or another to a nonprofit organization created under Chapter 180 or Chapter 203 of the Massachusetts General Laws on the land currently under the care and custody of Barnstable County and identified on Bourne Assessors Map 44 as Parcel 23, provided that the General Court may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation with the scope of the general public objectives of this petition.
Ms. Ferretti, you have the floor.
The Select Board is currently working to purchase this property from Barnstable County in accordance with a 2019 vote at town meeting. A portion of the property is encumbered by a conservation restriction and is protected open space under Article 97. Currently, while the county owns the property, the town holds the conservation restriction. Once the town buys the property, another group will have to hold the conservation restriction. We are proposing that the Barnstable County hold the group, we are proposing that Barnstable County hold the conservation restriction after the town purchases the property. In order to transfer the conservation restriction from the town of Barnstable County, the Article 97 process requires that the town meeting approve special legislation to petition the general court to approve the change under the rules set forth by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. An yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would allow the town to file special legislation with the general court to allow Barnstable County to hold the town's conservation restriction on the property. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not prevent the town from filing the necessary special legislation at this time.
Thank you.
The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you, Ms. Ferretti. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Carla Emmons.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0-0 in favor of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 16? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 16. This requires a simple majority vote. When I tell you, you may begin voting. You will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board has passed with 172 in favor and 9 opposed. Article 9. Article 9 on page 18 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 9?
We surely do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Anne Marie Sarunian.
We move that the town vote to appropriate and reserve the sum of $47,558.42 from the historic reserves and $2,441.58 from the undesignated fund balance to fund the archaeological study, including all related and incidental work and expenses referred to in Article 9 of the warrant, said sum to be spent under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
Ms. Sarunian, you have the floor.
This application for community preservation funds is submitted by the Herring Pond Wampanoag Tribe for the preservation of the historic resource commonly known as Burying Hill. The area surrounding Burying Hill is saturated with history, from the ancient Wampanoag village to the early settlement and town gatherings to the construction of the Cape Cod Canal. In order to protect, preserve, enhance, and restore this significant town-owned historic, cultural, and archaeological resource, the funds will be used to conduct a non-invasive investigation of Burying Hill using ground-penetrating radar and other tools and technology in order to confirm the extent of the burials and, in the process, potentially locate the site of the original 1637 meeting house established by Richard Bourne and Thomas Tupper. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion provides funding for the proposed project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion means that the funding would not be provided and the project cannot proceed at this time. The Select Board voted unanimously 4-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Priscilla Harcourt.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously to recommend approval for this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Is there any discussion on Article 9? Ms. Sarunian?
Just a note, what a wonderful opportunity this is for the community. Anytime we can connect, certainly the heritage and the sacred ground of our Wampanoag tribe here, and also to connect history with respects to the town in its earlier times is, to me, a very valuable asset and opportunity here that we can't pass up. The site itself is a fragile site. It's been partially disturbed and almost, and quite frankly, largely forgotten.
Thank you. Ms. Alfano?
Sorry. Kathy Fox Alfano, Gray Gables, and I am a trustee of the Bourne Historical Society. I just want to say that this is a critical vote. We really want to embrace our history with this, and also Bourne often takes a back seat to Plymouth when it comes to our Wampanoag history, and I think this will really help us move that and show that our history is intertwined. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on Article 9? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 9. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board has passed with 159 votes in favor and 13 in opposition. Article 17. Article 17 on page 29 of your handbook requires a 2/3 majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 17?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Melissa Ferretti.
We vote to authorize the Select Board and the Conservation Commission to convey, amend, assign, or otherwise transfer to Barnstable County or another to a nonprofit organization created under Chapter 180 or Chapter 203 of the Mass General Laws all of the town's right, title, and interest in and to the conservation restriction registered with the Barnstable County. Barnstable County District of the Land Court as document 978790 under the terms and conditions deemed by the Select Board and the Conservation Commission to be in the best interest of the town, and to further authorize the Conservation Commission to accept Barnstable County's interest in said conservation restriction, and further authorize the Select Board and the Conservation Commission to take any and all action and to execute any documents said board and or commission deems necessary or appropriate in connection herewith.
Ms. Ferretti, you have the floor.
Before the town can close on the purchase of the county land in Pecasset, town meeting must vote by 2/3 majority that they approve the transfer of the conservation restriction from Conservation Commission to Barnstable County. Currently, because the land is owned by the county, the town holds the conservation restriction. When the town becomes the owner of the property, we must identify a different group to hold the conservation restriction. Barnstable County has agreed to hold the conservation restriction on our behalf, and this vote would provide the local legislative approval of that action.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Priscilla Harcourt.
The Finance Committee voted for Article 17 unanimously in favor of approval.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any discussion on Article 17?
Madam Moderator?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead,
I
Ms.
just needed
Ferretti.
to add my yes or a yes or I vote in favor of this motion would provide the local authorization to transfer the existing conservation restriction from the town of Bourne to Barnstable County. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not authorize the necessary transfer of the existing conservation restriction. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to
Thank
approve
you.
this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferretti. Is there any further discussion on Article 17? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 17. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 156 in favor and 9 opposed. Article 18. I'm sorry. Article 18 on page 30 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a motion on Article 18?
Yes, we do.
I recognize Peter Meyer.
We move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $8,000 for the purposes of this article, and to meet this appropriation, to transfer the sum of $8,000 from free cash.
Mr. Meyer, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. The explanation will be pretty self-explanatory with yes and no's. A yes or I vote in favor of the motion would allow the town to install a fence on the town hall property to secure Department of Natural Resources equipment. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion would not allow the necessary funds, and the project cannot move forward at this time. Select Board recommendation was we voted 5-0-0 unanimously to support this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Amanda Bongiovanni.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0-0 to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 18? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 18. This vote requires a simple majority. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board has passed with 143 in favor and 6 opposed. Article 11. We did it. Article 11 on page 20 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion on Article 11?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Chair M.J. Mastrangelo.
We move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to acquire, by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise, a conservation restriction on multiple parcels of registered land to be held by the Town of Bourne Conservation Commission totaling 29.8 acres, more or less, located at 541 County Road and 0, 42, 44 to 56, and 58 Valley Bars Road, consisting of 29.8 acres, more or less, as shown as lots 10, 11, 12, 13, and 24 on Land Court Plan 35839B-1 and lots 14 to 23 on Land Court Plan 35839B-2 and lot 35 on Land Court Plan 35839C and lot 39 on Land Court Plan 35839F, copies of which are on file with the Bourne Town Clerk for conservation, watershed protection, and passive recreation purposes for the general public, consistent with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, 310 CMR 22.00, and Article 97 of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and to enter into a contract for the acquisition thereof by the town upon such terms and conditions deemed to be in the best interest of the town by the Select Board, and further, for the purposes of said acquisition, to appropriate and reserve $2,100,000 from the Open Space Reserves Fund to pay the cost of said acquisition, including all other costs, fees, and expenses incidental and related thereto, provided further that the Select Board and the Conservation Commission shall have authority to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the municipality to effect this purchase and obtain reimbursement funding by grant or otherwise, provided further that the Conservation Commission shall assume the monitoring and enforcement authority of the conservation restriction on said property.
Second.
Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. This article seeks CPA funding to purchase a conservation restriction on 29.8 acres of land. With this funding, the town of Bourne will own the conservation restriction overseen by the Bourne Conservation Commission, protecting the use of the land in perpetuity, and the Bourne Conservation Trust will own the land and be responsible for maintenance. This is an advantageous arrangement for the town because maintenance of open space has been identified as a concern of the Open Space Committee. Under this proposal, the public will benefit from the protection of the property, but the town will not be responsible for the maintenance of the property. The parcel is surrounded on three sides by over 470 acres of protected mature forest owned by the town of Bourne, the Town Forest Four Ponds Conservation Area, and the Water District Main Wellfield. The fourth side borders County Road, a designated scenic road since 1975. The Bourne Water District wrote a letter in support of the project stating, "Protection of this forest tract will prevent the subdivision development of many homes with lawns and septic systems as close as 500 feet from our wells. All 29.8 acres lie within the DEP designated Zone 2 of our well field, meaning the property's land can directly affect water quality of our drinking water supply. In addition, land kept in its forested state is vital to providing filtration of precipitation into the aquifer, particularly the removal of nitrogen. Adding close to 30 protected areas will enhance the future viability of this well field." The $2.1 million value for the conservation restriction was determined by an appraisal of land value. There was a house on the property that has been demolished, and the property will continue as forested open space. The Bourne Conservation Trust has also applied for a state forestry grant to help fund the purchase. Under a memorandum of agreement, if the grant is received, the grant proceeds will go to the town to reduce the amount paid by the town for the conservation restriction. Acquiring this property aligns with the Bourne Local Comprehensive Plan for Open Space and Recreation, as well as the goals and policies outlined in the Regional Policy Plan of the Cape Cod Commission. Furthermore, preventing the development of this parcel will reduce pressure on town services and contribute to the community's fiscal stability. Adding this acreage to the adjacent 470 acres of existing protected land will result in a 500-acre assemblage of pine oak forest in Pocasset and would be one of the largest local conservation and wellfield protection areas on Cape Cod. Much of the property features rugged ridge and hollow topography, and the public already enjoys its trails for hiking and mountain biking. These trails seamlessly connect to an extensive network of marked paths within the town forest and the watershed lands. This is a unique opportunity for the town of Bourne to enhance the town forest, Four Ponds conservation area, and protect the wellfield. For more information about Article 11, you can refer to the supporting documentation in Appendix D of the voter handbook. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion would provide funding for the town to purchase a conservation restriction on 29.8 acres located at 541 County Road for $2,100,000, which is less than the town's appraised value of $2,370,000, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion means the funding would not be provided and the project cannot go forward at this time. The Select Board voted unanimously, 5-0-0, to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Tom Joyce.
The Finance Committee voted to recommend approval of this article by a vote of 3 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 abstentions.
I'm going to, thank you for that. I'm going to hand the mic to the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, Barry Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just want to rise on behalf of the Open Space Committee and the Community Preservation Committee to let everyone know that this is one of the most important articles that we feel unanimously that we've been able to present to the body this evening. We are in full support of it, and our chairperson, MJ, just gave an wonderful explanation of the purpose of the article. So again, we are in unanimous support and hope you will be too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Doherty, I recognize you. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bill Doherty, and I live in Katomet. I have great respect for what I heard. However, 4 people on the Finance Committee either abstained or did not vote for this, and I wonder if and although I recognize that your vote represents how you feel about something and you don't have to explain, I wonder if the people who voted against it could share with us what their reservations were on the Finance Committee.
They don't typically do that anymore, but would someone on the Finance Committee like to speak to their vote?
Hi, my name is Carla Emmons, and I voted no on this particular article. We listened to a lot of the arguments. I feel as if, and this is, my view from the Finance Committee, is not other people voted for it, was that this property would always be protected regardless if we purchased it or not.
Thank you.
I'm going to let Mr. Johnson respond to that.
Madam Moderator, may I respectfully request that you recognize Mr. Stephen Ballantyne, President of the Bourne Conservation Trust?
I will do that. Mr. Ballantyne? You have the floor. 3 minutes.
Good evening. Steve Ballantyne from Cotumet, and I'm representing the Bourne Conservation Trust, which is a nonprofit which has been sequestering and preserving property in the town of Bourne and many of the villages since 1980. This particular parcel appeared in a listing in early August, and I felt it was very important, if not imperative, that the town seek to preserve this parcel because of its location, because of its conservation value, right in the middle of many, many acres of conservation land and town forests, and more importantly, because of its proximity, surrounded by Bourne Water District well fields. I felt it was so important that we took a leap of faith and procured it, signed a purchase and sale agreement to purchase the property with a closing date in November. But knowing that the town, because of the constraints of their organization, would not be able to act on this property in a timely fashion, and it would have been lost to development. I felt very strongly that that would happen. So we put it under agreement, and we're going to pursue the town of Bourne being involved in the purchase of this property. The wheels of government take a very long time to materialize, and I think you all understand that, and that's why we got involved in this. It's already been three months since the property was listed, and this is where we are anyway, and I'm sure that the town would not have been able to react in a timely fashion. So the Conservation Trust communicated with the town of Bourne through the Community Preservation Committee, which oversees CPA funding. And we talked to the Open Space Committee, we talked to the Conservation Committee, we also talked to the Bourne Water District to get their feelings on it. The CPC oversees funds for projects just like this, and we applied to them for $2.1 million.
Mr. Ballantyne, that's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anyone else would like to be heard on this article, I saw you first. Go ahead.
Keith Barber, Pocasset. I'm the president of Pocasset Water Quality Coalition. So our board of directors voted last Thursday unanimously, 9-0, that we want to support this article. Besides being next door to the well fields, it's also higher property flowing down towards our saltwater. So with our sandy soil, whatever gets built here would be contributing to our saltwater deterioration. And that's why we've taken a position to support this article. I hope everyone will vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Yes. Please approach the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Good evening. Jim Linsky, Pocasset. I tried to educate myself a little bit, tried to do a little research, so I have four items to refer to, and I certainly can be quick. Outside, some of you may have seen this. This is from Bourne Conservation Trust. Quote, the property was appraised as a 24-lot subdivision for the town at $2.77 million in September. Appraised for the town, not appraised by the town. Doesn't say how the appraisal was done or who the appraisal was done by. And now, of course, we have our 2024 Bourne property values. Everybody loves to look at this. And you'll see that at 541 County Road, 21 acres is owned by Charles W. Austin for valued at $692,000. Also, on Valley Bars Road, there are 16 properties also owned by Charles W. Austin, and these are the properties we're talking about for the rest of the 9 acres, totaling $144,000. So the total here, valuation, according to the town of Bourne, is $836,000, not $2.1 million. So there's a little information for you. Also, in Article 11, and we just heard it, it reads, all of this property is within the wellhead protection area for Bourne Water District. The Bourne Conservation Trust website says that this property is an imminent threat of subdivision and development. I think those two statements contradict each other. If the property is within the wellhead, and I'm not an engineer and I've heard everything, I would think that it would be the Conservation Commission responsibility to oversee any problems with this. I may not be making myself very clear at this point, but the point is, isn't it already or will already be protected because it's within the wellhead protection area and not in imminent threat of subdivision or development? Last thing, if in fact it is in imminent threat of subdivision and development, I would love to see the Southside Fire Station Committee take a second look at this property if it is indeed for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on Article 11?
Could I respond?
Yes, I'll allow it. You have the floor, Chair Mastrangelo.
Thank you. First of all, property near here was originally considered for a Southside Fire Station. A fire station cannot be built on any land that is near a designated water well field because of contaminants that are possible from PFAS from firefighting equipment. Second of all, the appraisal that was done was a market rate appraisal for the development of 29 acres, which is significantly different than the this property assessment where there was a house that had to be torn down at 541 County Road. So those values are different. And there was a developer ready to step in and purchase this property. And if it weren't for the quick action of the Bourne Conservation Trust, that developer would have gotten this property and we would have not had the ability to make this purchase. This is an awesome purchase. These things don't happen often. And, I think it was about a year ago that the Bourne Conservation Trust did a tremendous effort to buy property from the Megansett Road in North Falmouth. They raised a lot of money and they prevented development of something that it would change the face of Megansett. So this is a question for the town meeting to say, what do we want our town to look like? And do we value 500 acres of protected land and using money that exists in the open space land bank money to make this purchase and make it a conservation restriction in perpetuity is hopefully something this town meeting understands. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mastrangelo. Mr. Terrell, do you have something to add?
Briefly, Madam Moderator.
Thank you.
I don't recall seeing
this sort of arrangement between the town and the Bourne Conservation Trust, but I can say from my many years participation in this meeting that the Open Space Committee and the Bourne Conservation Trust have earned a high and quality reputation to warrant us having faith in this type of arrangement for this valuable purpose. We talk a lot about protecting, and we talk a lot about nitrogen in the waterways. This plays right in there. I urge you to vote in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Terrell. Would anyone else like to be heard on this article? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 11. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. Okay. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 146 votes in favor and 14 opposed. Please no clapping. Okay. This is the last article, so we will not have to extend this meeting tonight. Thank you all. The last article tonight is Article 10. Article 10 on page 19 of your handbook requires a simple majority vote. Does the Select Board have a positive motion?
We do, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Melissa Ferretti.
We move that the town vote to appropriate and reserve the sum of $55,000 from open space reserves of the Community Preservation Fund to purchase a portion of a parcel of land, approximately 3.3 acres, identified as 88 Puritan Road, on Bourne Assessor's Map 19.2, Parcel 62, including costs incidental and related thereto for purposes of community preservation as set forth in the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44B, Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, as amended, and to enter into a contract for the acquisition thereof by the town upon such terms and conditions deemed to be in the best interest of the town by the Select Board. Provided further that the Select Board and Conservation Commission shall have authority to enter into all agreements and to execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the municipality to effect this purchase and obtain reimbursement funding by grant or otherwise vote.
Ms. Ferretti, you have the floor.
The town has the opportunity to purchase 3.3 acres parcel at 88 Puritan Road, Buzzards Bay. That is environmentally sensitive and crucial to the Queen Sewell Watershed Action Plan. The town is currently reviewing several opportunities to improve water quality at this pond through said plan. This parcel is a natural filter for stormwater and habitat for a variety of land and water species. Acquisition of this parcel will allow the town to preserve this parcel in perpetuity, as well as allow the necessary drainage improvements at surrounding town-owned properties. Currently, the town has a grant to reconstruct the Queen Sewell parking lot, and portion of improvements would also be on 88 Puritan Road if allowed. Stormwater is currently entering this parcel untreated. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion provides funding for the proposed project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. A no or nay vote opposed to this motion means that the funding would not be provided and the project cannot proceed at this time. The Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to recommend this approval of this article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a positive recommendation on this article?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I recognize Tom Joyce.
The Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0 to vote approval of this article.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on Article 10? Seeing and hearing none, we can move to a vote on Article 10. This vote requires a simple majority. When I tell you, you will have 30 seconds to cast your vote. Green for yes, red for no. You may begin voting now. Voting is now closed. I declare the motion of the Select Board as passed with 130 votes in favor and 3 opposed. That was the final article that we had to take under consideration this evening. At this time, I will entertain a motion to dissolve this town meeting. I have a motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor, we will do a voice vote for this one. All those in favor of dissolving this special town meeting, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. I declare it was unanimous. Have a great evening. Thank you, Bourne.